Shwmae a chroeso I Sgwrs, podlediad Consortiwm Canolbarth y De. Yn y podlediad hwn byddwch chi'n clywed y trafodaethau diweddara am bob math o bethau addysg. Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the Central South Consortium podcast. In this podcast we'll bring you the very latest discussions on all things education.
Hello and welcome to Sgwrs, the podcast series from Central South Consortium. My name is Sarah Summers and I am the Area Lead for Digital Learning. In this podcast, I am joined by Rebecca Coombs, the Assistant Head Teacher at Robina Primary School and the Leader of Cross-Curricular Digital Skills. In this episode, we are going to talk about how the school has developed a process for implementing and embedding cross-curricular digital skills across their school. So shall we start at the very beginning then? Is it true that, like many other schools, it was the COVID pandemic that instigated the move towards the greater use of digital provision at your school?
Oh, without a doubt. We went into COVID on the brink of starting to use Google Classroom as our main way of delivering online lessons before we even knew the pandemic was going to hit. And when we suddenly had to provide online learning with COVID, we had nursery and reception using the school website to upload work. We had year 1 and year 2 using Hub, and we had Key Stage 2 using Google Classroom. Now, bearing in mind the teachers in Key Stage 2 had just had a few months to get their head around Google Classroom. It wasn't fully embedded in the school at the time, and we were asking them to go 24/7 online learning. This is what you're using.
Wow.
Obviously, we weren't seeing each other face to face either to give each other support. So at the very start of the pandemic, we were running 3 platforms for online learning. In such a large school, we had the problem of how do you maintain consistency. We've got siblings in different year groups, so we had parents potentially working on 3 different platforms at home as well, and 3 different methods of communication. And at the very start of lockdown, we didn't have a method of giving verbal feedback. Everything was typed, even for our sort of lower age children. It was written feedback and written messages. So a couple of weeks in, we decided it wasn't working. We weren't finding it very easy to share tasks between year groups. Key Stage 2 were in a better state because obviously they can reuse assignments and we could see each other's Google Classrooms, but nursery to year 2 was struggling a little bit with availability, the ease of resources. It was very much put a PDF up, and if the parents have got a printer, you're on a winner, and if not, it's a scrap piece of paper, which kind of undermined everything we were doing. So we had to rapidly rethink what we were doing, and the first thing we did was introduce audio feedback. So we started on Purple Mash giving audio feedback to the pupils.
Right.
We introduced Mote as one of the apps for verbal feedback higher up the school. And Hub obviously has the option to record a message to the children. We made our own stickers to give electronic point systems at home. So Hub would have a feedback where we could give written feedback, and then we'd allocate our own stickers and point system.
Yeah.
That was okay until we realised that staff need training on it. And we're currently not doing face-to-face teaching, and we're currently not seeing staff. So our whole approach to digital learning impacted on inset sessions, CPD, upskilling the staff. So we offered at the start, now we would call it hybrid learning for the staff. So we offered online sessions we offered staff who were very confident at ICT, here's the instructions if you want to upskill yourself. And then we had drop-in sessions, limited numbers on site, social distanced at the time, which seems like such a long time ago. To have that security blanket of introducing something new. That then, obviously, we're a very large school. We had to filter down to the TAs as well. So we had a couple of weeks where staff were trialing it. It was emailing and Teams and Google Meets of how to solve all the problems. But we did it a step at a time. So we were still on 3 platforms, but we had verbal feedback now, and the children were upskilled via their platform to be able to leave voice notes for us. While all this was going on, we're very aware we've got to upskill the parents as well, and our technology, once they're getting their head around one thing, we're trying to move it on at the same time. So we produced our parents' guides and put them on the website and messaged the parents to let them know where they were. At the time, we had an IT manager who was amazing at helping us with the technical side of things. And then we decided we couldn't go into a second lockdown in the same way. And we just decided we would take the whole school onto Google Classroom. It was faster than we'd anticipated because of the lockdown. And quite intimidating for some members of staff who thought it would be a Key Stage 2 development and would have a bit of time to get their head around it. So we used the expertise of Key Stage 2 who'd run with it for a while and upskilled nursery to year 2. We had some twilight sessions, we had drop-in sessions through the day, and when we went back to online learning and distance learning, the whole school was on one platform, which has stayed. And now it's like it's never been here, never been away. We use it every day. We started with a continuum of learning in lockdown, and we had a rationale of what we would teach through the week. Including Google Meets, which were scheduled for well-being. And while we haven't necessarily stuck to 5 maths lessons, 5 literacy, 2 Google Meets as rigidly now we're back on site, we use the Google Meets between year groups for team teaching, whether it's Welsh or a science introduction. And we've got the facility for Google Meets with external providers if we're doing a St. Fagans webinar, or we've got a code along. We've got that facility up and running, and the staff are really confident with it. Google Classroom is now our only platform. The school website has become just the information portal. And Google Classroom is our now where we set our assignments, where we post our helping at home information, where all the tasks, all of our resources are posted for the year group. And the feedback from the parents has been partly relief because it's only one place. On the language of, I need my hub password, I'm going into my Google Classroom, I'm handing in my assignment. That's very much embedded across the school now. It's nice to say it just happens. It's taken a while to get everybody to the same comfort level, including the TAs, because they have their responsibility of setting assignments for differentiated groups. But hand on heart, it just works. It's always evolving. There's always updates. We're currently looking at practice sets and how they can be used. And staff are quite happy now. We have a staff skills audit that we do at pinch points through the year to make sure staff are where we think they are. We don't want to assume anything and get it wrong and miss chances to upskill staff. And SMT are always looking for ways to move it on. So externally, it looks like it's very static and it's everybody doing the same thing. But actually behind the scenes, there's always a group of us sort of looking at what's next and how do we move it on now? How do we make it even more engaging? We're making sure at the moment that it does actually develop what we're doing in school, not just setting an assignment for the sake of it. Does it extend their learning? Does it challenge them? And making sure that it gives the children the opportunity for the flipped learning rather than setting an assignment at the end of a session as a follow-up task.
Yeah.
It's particularly the older children who are so good at collaborating and doing their research in advance of sessions rather than, for example, we did science, I'll set you a science follow-up. And we use it to flip the learning and actually direct them to do their own pupil voice research.
Really interesting. There's lots of things from what you've said there that's really struck me. First of all, it's the amount of reflection that you've done as a school, very much reflecting on that process that, first of all, you've got different platforms and reflecting on how are they working for our learners, our staff, but also for the parents, which is so important as well, isn't it? It's that whole community and that culture of your school. And from what you've said, it's that reflection seems to be the ongoing part of the process that's evolving all the time. So that really struck me as something that seems to be helping the effectiveness of your approach. And also, I think two other things that struck me as being really beneficial is the amount of time you've invested to support staff development, but all staff, from like leaders to teachers to teaching assistants.
Absolutely. Everybody's got a part to play in this. We are very keen to ensure that the TAs have the same training as the teaching staff. And that includes the intervention team and part-time workers. They're timetabled in on the days they're on site, so they come to their own set of training. No, we introduced Screencastify during lockdown to start giving video instructions. We decided we weren't going to do live lessons. After discussing it with the staff. So we had a rationale of when we'd be online. The staff had timetables for Google Meet that the parents were messaged about. But we wanted to ensure that level of contact so they could hear our voice and, they could see us twice a week and then feel like they were having an instruction from us, not just reading it. So some of the staff quite rightly said they didn't want to be seen on screen. Others were very comfortable being seen on screen. I think, bearing in mind, this was back when Teams wasn't as widely used and Google Meet was still brand new. So we used Screencastify, and we decided we would have a certain number of video lessons recorded and uploaded every week. Now, staff could decide how to manage their workload. They might want to record them all in one day and then schedule them to be released through the week, or they could sort of do it ad hoc, whatever suited them, as long as they hit the criteria for a certain number of videos. And automatically the staff said, I'm happy with the maths ones, give that all to me. So each year group sort of split into their specialist areas. And we've continued with that. We have now a bank of video lessons for introducing math skills, specific parts of literacy, and we keep it on the Google Drive for staff, and we've got a bank that builds up over the year, and we're still building on it now. whether it's somebody screen recording how to make a picture on purple mash, and that has continued. So nothing has disappeared. We've streamlined some things. We might not use everything all the time, but the tools are still there, and they're automatically reached for now. The confidence level's there. But like you said, the reflection and using all the stuff, the TAs, we didn't want to put the pressure on them of recording a lesson introduction, because a lot of the time we didn't see them. They were running hubs or online learning with us from their living room. So they recorded how-to videos and story time videos and singing videos. We had TAs teaching children how to draw. They recorded a little video, how to do juggling tricks and singing time. So a lot of well-being from the TAs on those videos. And we use them in class. We've got them on the website. So everybody is a part of this. And I think it's important that we are open to receiving the feedback from staff, whether it's you're moving too fast, I can't keep up with you, or I've done all of this and it still won't work, or you've given us loads of great ideas but we've missed a trick with this. And empowering the staff to take responsibility but have the confidence to do their own research. So if they come to us with something, they know it will be considered. If we can't use it, we've given them a valid reason. It might be a yes, but not now, or it's just not quite right, let's go and find something else. So we're in a cycle now where we have everything we used during lockdown embedded, and we're still introducing new apps. We're still introducing the coding. We're still introducing new e-safety things. So it is, like you said, a constant reflection and a constant improvement. But it's also meant that everybody's using the same vocabulary, the same approach to everything. It's tied up with behind the scenes curriculum mapping now, which is much tighter. Obviously during lockdown we were trying to get it all out and move things on. But it's very much a whole school improvement in this area.
And coming to you're saying, your curriculum mapping and thinking about the new curriculum for Wales, and as a school, I know you've done a lot of work on your curriculum design work. And in regards to this cross-curricular scale of digital weaving its way through all the different AOLEs and, the whole curriculum, as we think about it, not just in a lesson, but everything that we do, everything that we encompass, that we do for our learners, and everybody in the school being part of that from the very top down. How do you manage that then? How do you know that you are you're meeting the mandatory skills for digital skills? How do you know that through your curriculum design that your learners are receiving everything that they need to for cross-curricular digital skills?
And it's vast. It's huge when you start unraveling it. Hand on heart, it starts from the school vision. You have to know where you want to go, how you see this playing out. What would you expect if you walked into a lesson? And a lot of the staff reflected, and in simple terms, they were, well, it's just happening. It's just in the corner. It's just going on. Everybody's independent. But how do you get to that stage when we've got our long-term plans, our medium-term plans, our short-term planning, but then you've also got to look at DCF skills, science and technology skills. You've got links with the RSE curriculum. There's links with the integral skills. We've got all the stakeholders to consider, and the one thing it takes is time. It takes time, and a lot of time to talk and reflect and pull it all apart. You need a few members of staff in a breakout group who can always be that one step ahead, whether it's upskilling themselves or having extra time to pull the documents apart. We broke it down by starting with the DCF tracker, and that was one of our main drivers for raising the standards. A lot of the strands, when we reflected on it, we were hitting them. But there were things in the DCF tracker, for example, watermarking is something that we hadn't come across before. So we've got a DCF tracker that is broken down. We can track every AOLE that's covered and by year group on our DCF tracker. And each year group has a DCF tracker where they can see every progression stage. So they might be hitting the statements for their progression stage, but progression step 2 can see progression step 1. And progression step 2 can see progression step 3. So if we need to differentiate within a year group, we can, and we've mapped the differentiation straight away. My job then, behind the scenes, is to make sure that aligns with the long-term plan and the medium-term plan and the short-term plan, not just, yes, Beck, we've ticked the box to keep you quiet and make sure it's there. And then every half term, that's reviewed to make sure the coverage is there. And we meet with staff, they see the results. And we've decided that over the progression step, the statements can be hit once, they can be hit 3 times, as long as they're hit within that progression step. So the staff can see through the year at several pinch points, we're light on this statement. We haven't hit this statement. In times of reflection, when they say, I thought we would have hit that one. That's really easy. But it's very much a working document. It's on a shared drive, so the collaboration between staff, once it's done, it's up to date. It's something they can go into in their PPA, and it's something that we have designated inset time to update. From that, then I've worked with the RSE team to make sure that the online safety element matches with what they want in their trackers, and we've gone back to year groups again to fit that in. And then we broke it down and went to the statements of what matters, particularly 6 with coding. And we've now got a coding plan through the school where we have fortunately spent a lot of money on resources. Again, a staff confidence level, this has taken time. And we have allocated about 8 inset sessions and an inset day and TA training to this. And we've introduced it through very practical, where this have a carousel of all the coding resources to work their way through. And for the first couple of weeks, we didn't touch a piece of paper. We just played. And all the staff got used to the vocabulary and all the new resources. And then halfway through, we started to look at the paperwork. How do all these things we've got in school fit in with what matters 6? And in old money, with the programmable toys, we were hitting quite a lot. But with new curriculum, were we doing the right things? Were we just putting them out in continuous enhanced provision and playing without a challenge? Or were we actually raising our game, upskilling ourselves to be able to upskill the children to hand on heart say, we're hitting all of these strands? So again, the constant reflection comes in. We've had a lot of insets where we've broken out into progression steps. Progression step 3 have specifically taken on microbits, for example. But now we've got a lot of cross-progression step working, where nursery and reception are using tinies to code, but year 5 want to use the same resources for debugging. But everybody's had the same opportunity to learn about them, and then go back to their long-term maps and cross-reference that with the coding plan. So at any point, we know which resources are used in which year group and what they're using them for.
And I think that's a nice example that you've given there about nursery and reception are using the same tool or resource or piece of kit as year 5 pupils, because actually it shows, doesn't it, that you're thinking about your concept, you're thinking about the learning that's coming first. You're not thinking about that activity or that piece of kit first, because if you're thinking about the learning that comes first, then it doesn't matter what piece of kit you're using and what the activity is as your vehicle for that learning. It can be something that is for, pupils of all ages, as long as you are ensuring that that learning is moving on, is progressing. Absolutely. So that's really important, isn't it, for everybody to know? And it sounds like you've really unpicked that by looking at those concepts in those statements of what matter.
It's one of the biggest changes of mindset, I would say, not just resources or technology. Change of mindset where you take the ceiling off, and it's not, for example, Bebots or Sgwrs are only for a certain year group. They're on the shelf, they're bookable. Anybody who wants them can come and take them and use them. But we've had that time to talk, round table discussions. We're going to do this in year 5. What are you going to do in year 6 to move it on? Or is anybody plan the same activity? Okay, well, one of you've got to choose who's having it. How will you move it on for the next year group? We've got the Sgwrs that are used in year 2 at the moment. Year 6 have had them, reception have had them, 5 have had them, and they're all doing slightly different things with the children. But that's because we've put the time and the reflection and the discussion in first, and then run with it afterwards.
And reflecting on your learners, how have you seen your pupils develop and change since you've used your approach? It seems, thinking about COVID seems like such a long time ago now, doesn't it? Even though it's just been those few years. But, over that period of time, how have your learners changed and developed? Have you seen change in their confidence, their competencies?
Oh, absolutely. The Chromebooks, we had a lot of iPads before lockdown. And we had the Mac suite that we've got and the Windows suite. And that was up and running and the learners were confident using it. The Chromebooks hadn't been with us that long before we went into lockdown. And it was always approached with a little bit of dread, a little bit of anxiety. And coming out of it, I don't know how we functioned without them. They are so confident, so articulate when you ask them about their learning. I do regular listening to learnings about their technology work, and they bring their Chromebooks to the meetings because they want to log on and show me all their work. Whether it's a history research they've done, collaborating in year 4 this afternoon. Some of them are working in the classroom and some of them are in the corridor working on a collaborative Google Slides presentation. But they are so confident, and it's the world they're growing up in, so they're not fazed by it at all. It is challenging to stay one step ahead of them, because they are so used to technology being available to them. They don't bat an eyelid about it. They're fearless. We are in the process of revising our e-safety tools and the resources we've got, and the teacher's response this week was, oh, the children will be better than me, they'll know what to do. If I get stuck, the children will help me. But that's so nice to see that they're comfortable to have a chat with their teachers. No, you click on here, Mrs. Coombs, and you do this, Mrs. Coombs. But they will automatically say, can I go and get a Chromebook to do my research? Can I present this on a Jamboard? So it's very much they're available to them, they've got the choice. And as staff, we've been very careful not just to leave it to pupil voice days or pupil voice time. It's there embedded in our differentiated activities. It's available for group work, continuous enhanced provision. And it's very natural now that they will choose to do a pic collage, or they'll do a Flipgrid recording. They have got the vocabulary and the tools that they can choose how to present their work now. And quite often they'll carry on at home and, you know, come in the morning and say, have you checked your Google Classroom? I've done a bit more on my assignment. And they've just got such a passion for it.
That's
it's
great,
brilliant to see, yeah.
Really good. That's really great. Have you, you know, the barriers, I think you've talked a lot about the time that you've invested into this. Have there been any other barriers that you've encountered that have been really difficult for you to overcome?
There was the logistics side of things with such a large number of staff, getting everybody on board. First of all, being able to manage the numbers of staff meeting and upskilling everybody at the same time. Confidence can be a bit of a stumbling block. But we know our staff very well, and quite often they just need to have 10 minutes to play with no one watching. It can be quite intimidating if you're all together and you're not sure which button to press, or you can't control your device. Sometimes it's much easier just to take yourself off and have a play on your own and work it all out. So it is sort of staff awareness of how you approach things. And then the skills audit it's been so beneficial, just giving staff time to reflect, and them offering the drop-in sessions as kind of counterbalance that with, oh, I've got somebody to go to if I'm unsure. Sometimes you just have to charge ahead and the support will follow behind you, because it's just, we're driving forward and we'll help you along the way. But I have to say, we are so fortunate. We've got a large number of teachers and teaching assistants, and they have embraced this 100%.
It's really, really exciting, isn't it?
It's
it's fab. And for those schools then that, you know, they're at the stage now where they're beginning to think about how are they going to implement the digital cross-curricular digital skills into their curriculum design work for their curriculum for Wales. What advice would you give to them, you know, thinking about the approach that you've taken? What advice could you give them?
There are times where we're still in the process of refining our topics, you know, reflecting at the end of every half term what went well. And there are times where we revert back to a huge piece of sugar paper and a pen, and we draw it all out again, and we start from scratch, and where does it all fit in? I would say familiarise yourself with the DCF. You need to know what is expected for each progression step. It's very easy to put technology in because the children will enjoy it or because it's fun. But our responsibility is teaching and learning and challenging these children and moving their skills on. If you're not okay with the documentation, you're never going to get the children to the expected levels. We started with the DCF, and it was so valuable to pull it apart and have that dialogue. We've broken it down into AOLEs because I wanted to be able to see where it was being used. So we could ensure, hand on heart, if we're saying we've got a broad and balanced approach to the curriculum, we actually have. It's in numeracy, or it's in literacy. Oh, year 4 have got it in expressive arts this week. You need to know where the children have got to get to. And where you can put those opportunities in. It's also not overthinking it, and don't overcomplicate it. We're really good at making work for ourselves as a profession, over ticking boxes. And use an online tracker. Work smartly as a staff to collaborate on an online tracker so that everybody can see it. So no holes barred approach. If it goes wrong, it goes wrong. Hands up. Didn't work, try something else. And having that discussion to reflect, the confidence to put your hand up if you don't know what you're doing or you want some extra support. The DCF is easy to link everything together. So start with that.
That's great. Thank you. I think you've given some really valuable, important messages there. Thank you so much. Well, I must say, I've really enjoyed talking with you this afternoon. I think there's going to be a lot of schools out there that's going to take a lot of valuable information away from your approach. And a big well done to you, because you're doing great stuff.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. So big thank you to Rebecca from Robina Primary School. And please tune in to more of our episodes on Sgwrs. And thank you very much.
Diolch am wrando ar y bennod hon o Sgwrs. Cofiwch ein dilyn ar Twitter a Facebook, tanysgrifio ein sianel YouTube, ymuno yn cymunedau ar ein gwefan a darllen ein bwletin ysgolion wythnosol am y newyddion diweddaraf. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sgwrs. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our online communities via our website, and read our weekly school bulletin for the latest news. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.